Shopify's already taken the cash register online, helping millions sell billions around the world. But did you know that Shopify can do the same thing at your retail store? Give your point of sale system a serious upgrade with Shopify. With Shopify, you get a powerhouse selling partner that effortlessly unites your in-person and online sales into one source of truth. Track every sale across your business in one place and know exactly what's in stock. Connect with customers inline and online. Shopify helps you drive store traffic with plug-and-play tools built for marketing campaigns from TikTok to Instagram and beyond. Get hardware that fits your business. Take payments by smartphone, transform your tablet into a point of sale system, or use Shopify's POS Go mobile device for a battle-tested solution. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/noise, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/noise to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/noise.
If anyone's wondering or having this feeling that I think there's something else I'm meant to do, I'm not sure what it is, but I feel as though like it's a feeling, right? Whether it's making a change in any capacity in our lives, but you're just not sure, taking a look at your gene keys and your human design could be the roadmap that you're looking for. What do I want for these next X amount of years that we have on this earth?
You're listening to Make Some Noise podcast, episode number 623 with guest Tracie Cornell. Welcome to Make Some Noise podcast, your guide for strategies, tools, and insight to empower yourself. I'm your host, Andrea Owen, global speaker, entrepreneur, life coach since 2007, and author of 3 books that have been translated into 18 languages and are available in 22 countries. Each week, I'll bring you a guest or a lesson that will help you maximize unshakable confidence, master resilience, and make some noise in your life. You ready? Let's go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I am so glad that you are here. I am smiling. Can you tell that I'm smiling? I'm smiling because I just finished recording the episode that you're going to hear right now, which very rarely happens, by the way. Usually I record the intro pretty like weeks after I have the interview with the person. However, this is kind of a quick turnaround, and I was in a pinch, and I asked a former client of mine to come onto the show. And she's actually been here before. She has been here for, talking about various programs. And also she was one of the people that I had who was coached live on the show. So I'm going to pop those links into the show notes. Her name's Tracie. And today, though, Tracie comes on as an expert, as a professional. And I had heard from her, I like to keep in touch with my former clients, especially ones that I've worked with for years, like I have with Tracie. And she had told me that she was incorporating something new into her work as a leadership trainer and facilitator. And it was around human design. And I've had human design people on before. I think I know at least one person, maybe 2, but hers was a little bit more specific, and it was around something called gene keys. And I was like, what is that? Is that like horoscopes? And what ended up happening, this was last summer. She ran my profile, and it's similar to horoscope. You give your date of birth, the time, and the place. And I didn't really think a whole lot of it. And so when she ran my profile and left me some messages about what she had seen in my profile, it was so spot on and so exact, not even just for my personality, but more specifically, this was telling me what my life's purpose was and what are the things that like are obstacles for you? What are the problems that you keep running into over and over again in terms of your personal development? It was that specific. And when she gave me this profile and started talking to me about it, I was like, you shut your mouth, Tracie. I can't hear any more of this. And, of course I was nice about it. And we laughed about it. And she was excited to tell me about it because she knows me as a person. And I was in a place last summer where it was a little messy, to be honest with you. I already knew that my marriage was over and my husband and I were trying to separate. still living in my marital home, and things were incredibly, incredibly difficult. And I was not ready to look at that work, but I did love her excitement and enthusiasm about it. And so fast forward, I was sitting here at my desk thinking, who am I going to get to be on the podcast? I can't believe I did this. I just let Summer get away from me, and this is unlike me. I was like, oh, Tracie. Tracie had mentioned like, hey, if you ever want me to come on the show and talk about this, I could be a guest. So I picked up my phone and here we are. It is definitely one of those things where as a student, for me, I was not ready to hear the things that she talked to me about. And here I am. And I'm excited to bring this to you because I'm hoping that you will get a lot out of this in terms of having your own profile run. And before I read you her bio, because this episode ran a little bit long and because I had so much to ask her about, and I just want to, I want to preface this by saying this is not an entire episode of her reading my profile. She does point to some things in there, but she also talks about different things that come up for other people. She mentions her profile so you can see the juxtaposition of what might come out in your gene key profile. It's fascinating, you guys. And I also love how well organized it is. But I wanted you to understand that. And there is an opportunity for you to have your own profile run for free with Tracie, no obligation. And we do talk about it at the end of the call. But for those of you who maybe don't listen to the entire episode or you run out of time, the link is in the show notes. It's at thesheexperience.com/free call. I don't get any kickback. If you do end up working with Tracie, you are not obligated to do so. If nothing else, you can have your own profile run. It's interesting. It's more than interesting. It is almost spooky. So if you want to just have another avenue into a glimpse of your own personal development, definitely listen to the interview and thesheexperience.com/free call, all one word, to have your profile run by Tracie. So let me tell you a little bit about our guest today. As a former corporate leadership coach and facilitator for 22 years, working primarily for a large global bank, Tracie created her own business and has been an entrepreneur for the past 4.5 years. It wasn't until she began exploring her human design and gene keys charts that she realized she still was not doing the work she loved, which was due to not being aligned with her design and what she truly meant to do in the world. Now, Tracie combines timeless leadership and coaching principles with the power of human design and gene keys, helping women identify and achieve their goals and step into the life and work she was meant to have. So without further ado, here is Tracie. Tracie, welcome back.
Hi, Andrea.
It's such a pleasure to have you back on.
Oh my gosh, such a pleasure.
Well, I talked a little bit about you in the intro, that you are started out as a client of mine, took some classes. We did a lot of private work together. And then last summer, and we've always kept in touch, even though you're not a client anymore. And then you told me about this new endeavor that you jumped into. And when you started talking to me about it last summer, I was eyeball deep in trying to get out of my marital home. Like, let's just be honest. And like my separation was like fairly new, but I was still living at home and I was super interested in it. But I was like, one more thing I can't have on my plate right now. But I loved how excited you were about it. And there was one thing that jumped out at me of the Gene Keys profile that you ran for me, where I was, and it was almost like when you told me what, and we're going to get into it, but just as kind of like a little taste for the listener, when you told me what came up from my profile, I gave you my birthday. It's a lot similar information to like your horoscope. When you told me what like my kind of life's work was, I think I laughed for like a minute straight over Boxer audio.
Yes, I remember.
Because it's been like the bane of my existence.
Yeah.
And what is that?
Yeah. So I remember this conversation last summer, my friend. It was so detachment, and we're going to get into this, but just put a pin in this.
Yeah.
For you, detachment is the gift of your life's work.
Okay, that's what that particular, what do you call it? Like,
It's your gift within your life's work.
okay.
In your, I'm going to throw out a lot of terminology. We're
Yeah,
going to
yeah,
back
yeah.
the truck up, I promise. It's the your gift in your life's work in your activation sequence in your gene keys.
Oh, that was probably the same reaction I had when you
You
told me
did.
that.
You
I was like,
did.
gift for who? Because it's not a
Right.
gift for me, because
Yeah.
detachment has been my biggest struggle. And
Yeah.
that I knew that before you even told me. So that's why I was like, you've got to be kidding me when you told
Yeah.
me that. And probably partly why I didn't want to hear anymore. I was like, you need to come back in a year. So here we are, a year later.
Yes. And it's the perfect example because one of the things I want us to talk about is, this is not a one and done. This is a journey of learning about you. And so what I'm excited about is revisiting this with you because you're in a different place now.
Than I was when you first told me about that. Yeah.
Yes.
And
So,
for the listener, I also want to say that, and you can agree with me probably, that if somebody wants to even talk about their human design or their gene keys, it's
mhm.
probably best if they're in a place to hear kind of a deep level personal development topics that are specific to them, correct? Like, don't be in a place where you're trying to leave your marriage or like someone just died, right? Like, you have to have the capacity because it's a lot.
Yeah, yes and no. I think wherever we are, right? Because I'm
Uh-huh.
going to share a little bit about me in a moment. You have to be willing, right, to go to a place, whether it's coming from a place of I need something to change.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not where I want to be. I'm looking for something different. And it's that quest to learn something different about yourself. So you could be in a very tough place, whether, using your example, or maybe someone's struggling with the job they're in, but it's that desire to want to learn more about you. And maybe you're ready for it at a certain time, and maybe you're not.
Well, that was kind of a cold open. Sorry, everybody. Let's back the truck up, like you said. I love that expression. One of the reasons that I asked you to come onto the show is because you are not only a former client of mine, but you're someone who's an avid listener of the podcast.
Absolutely.
And you are here to, like, personal development is your jam. You are someone deeply invested in personal growth. And I also know that the thing that made me interested in having you on is that you were kind of doing the corporate thing for a while, and then we worked together. You ended up quitting your job, basically becoming a consultant on your own and becoming an entrepreneur, which is so exciting.
Mhm.
And then you have really taken this and run with it. So from someone who asks guests to be on her show and is very particular about it, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on is because I know you're smart and everyone will love you. But I'm like, if Tracie has gone this far into it, and you're not someone who like just easily drinks the Kool-Aid, you're not. I'm like, then there's something there, because I know you personally. And I knew that was like, I need to have her come on and tell us, like, why did you decide to take this deep dive into human design? So can we start there?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's so funny you said that, Andrea, because in preparation for us chatting today, I was thinking back when we first started working together. I think it was in 2016. I've done a couple of things with you, as you mentioned, but we were working one-on-one. And I specifically remember I was working in corporate, right? So I've been in the corporate space since college, right? I started in banking. And so I was in the corporate space for 30 years, and I was working downtown, and you and I were working one-on-one. And in order to do our sessions, I had to kind of sneak into a conference room. And I remember and I would kind of talk quietly sometimes.
Trying to
And
change your life
yes,
on the man's dime. Yeah.
right. And I remember the big, glass windows, and I was sitting with you in this corporate office trying to figure out what my next move was, among other things. I wasn't satisfied and happy in the job I was in. I wanted to go out on my own. And this was in 2016.
Yeah.
And you were really helping me navigate that. And fast forward, it took me another 5 years before I took the plunge to go out on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And looking back, now that I'm doing this work, I was stuck.
Yeah.
Right. For any of your listeners, if you're feeling stuck, I was stuck in doubt, confusion and uncertainty that was ruling the roost for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's right in my human design. Like when I first looked at it, boom, right there. Doubt, confusion, uncertainty. Oh, okay. And so even then, so it took me, so fast forward 2020, I went out on my own. And I thought to myself, okay, well, right, this is all just, it's all a journey when we're making changes in our lives. Now, was I ready back in 2020 to be doing what I'm doing right now? Absolutely not. I thought the next best path, well, why not take what I've been doing for the past 20 years and do that as my business? So I was in the leadership development space for 20 years. So back to what you said about, I love my personal development, but then in the corporate space, really honed in on the leadership development, working with teams and leaders. And I loved that work. And so I thought, well, why not go out and do that on my own?
Yeah. Which is basically personal growth in the professional space. Like that's what they call it. Yeah, I do. Yeah.
And so started down that path, and it was probably a year or two in. And I don't know how quite to describe this, but I was not feeling the level of satisfaction that I thought I would have going out and starting my own business. And I went down this path of just really beating myself up. What's wrong with me? I see people around me being successful. Why am I not feeling the level of joy and satisfaction in the work? I went out and started my own business. Why isn't this happening? And I was also, and again, this is me looking back on this, because that was my mindset, and it was almost like it was unconscious. You better believe it was affecting my bottom line. I was not getting deals. I was getting some contracts, but I was getting a lot of no. And that's typical, right? Or, we all have to get comfortable with some certainty of rejection, but something wasn't feeling right for me. And I never said a word to anyone. I couldn't talk to my husband about it because, we kind of he supported me, but he's like, okay, when are we going to get this thing going?
That. Mm-hmm.
I couldn't let the words come out that I wasn't feeling the level of joy and satisfaction starting my own business. And maybe it was the expectation I put on, like, oh, I'm going to go start my own business and that's where I'll be happy.
Well, and then we were also in a pandemic. So it's like, maybe it's the pandemic, like, and it's perimenopause because you're at that age. And like, there's a lot of variables that it could be. So I could see the confusion.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So it wasn't great. In my quest to figure out, I've got to, and that's not a great energy to be in. I've got to get this business going. I've got to get this off the ground. It's not a great energy. However, I stumbled upon, and now I know in my design, I also, and maybe you and your listeners can relate to this, I was also in a consuming mode, buying a lot of courses, enrolling in a ton of certifications. Maybe I need more knowledge. Maybe I need a next certification. It was all happening externally, right? Maybe that'll be the key to me getting my business up and going. So I came across a coach that I started working with 18 months ago, and that is where I was introduced to the human design and the gene keys. Now, you said it earlier. I am someone, and maybe your listeners can relate to this, and this is what I've been in your world. I am a very practical person. I want knowledge. I want step by step. I want the facts, right? And
solutions.
So I want solutions quickly, and so do you. And I see it in your design. So when I was first introduced to this, I said, wait a minute, what is this? And I remember, and my coach laughed at me because she saw my design. And so she said, of course you're questioning this. And I had come from a world of, the corporate certifications where if you're going to do an assessment, here's your 150 questions you have to answer first, right? And so when I saw gene keys and human design, and I said, wait a minute, how is something that you're just going to give your birth date and the time you were born going to give you this much information? I question
about how you tick and like move about the world.
Correct. Yeah. Yes. And I was very skeptical.
Yes.
But what I did, I took a little of my own advice because, a growth mindset is something I've talked about with clients and in team trainings, right? Again, very aware of the concept, but I decided, you know what? I'm going to embrace the concepts that I share with my clients and teams I work with. I'm really going to be open to this. Just something in me. And I really do believe that saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Yes.
Right.
100%.
So there was a little bit on my end because I did have to be open-minded. Now, some people may take a look at this and say, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. It is fantastic, but it took me a hot minute to really be open to it. And once I let myself be open to the learning and the studying of me, because that's what this is. It's a journey of studying you. I know this sounds a little dramatic when I say this, Andrea, but my life has changed. It has absolutely changed. So for me personally, but here's the other thing that really made me want to go deeper with this is as I started to learn about the things that you can uncover about you, I thought back to my career as a corporate facilitator and leadership coach. And the pattern that I used to see over and over again, whether I was in the classroom with 20 people or working one-on-one with somebody, sometimes people were able to apply what we talked about, right? And other times, many of times, there's concepts that we would introduce, but people didn't take action. It's almost like the concepts we would talk about would stay surface level, and people didn't know how to apply things to them. One of the things I talk about with my clients is closing what I call this knowing of information versus doing something about it. And there's a gap in between there. And what Gene Keys and Human Design helps you do is close that gap because you discover your true gifts, the things that are holding you back. And so no matter what you're doing, right? Like if there's another program that you're in or other concepts or things that you're doing, how do you close that gap then between knowing things and hearing, taking in information and actually taking action, doing something about it.
Yeah.
Right. And to take a very quick example, right? It's like if we want to make choices about our health, there's so much out on the internet. You could go on Instagram or Google. There's so many different ways for people to take control of their health these days. All the information's there. Yep. But it's the difference between knowing the information and actually applying it and doing something about it.
Right.
And using, I guess I like to call it a roadmap of your gene key and your human design. It shows you exactly the things that are holding you back from moving from knowing over to doing. And that's just one example.
Thank you for that intro. I'm glad that you sort of ran with it. And I wanted just to sort of highlight a couple of things and to put some language on it and to give people some grace. And then we'll get into it a little bit more. And just FYI, if anyone is interested in this and they have no idea, I've had at least one person on for human design, maybe two. We'll put the links in the show notes. So it might be like a good introduction if people want more information on it. But I haven't had anybody talk about the gene keys, which is probably the most interesting thing that you sent me when you ran my profile. And P.S., everybody, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about my profile because I want people to have a conversation with you and get their own. But when you talk about that gap, like the knowing the information versus doing, I call that integration. And whether sometimes it's either taking action externally or sometimes it's, mindset stuff. But I call that place, that gap, the point of no return, because it's the point where we know the information that we need to do, or at least need to try. And we can't unsee it. And for some people, the information is, and like for me, like 13 years ago, it was like, I know I need to get sober. And I know that there are resources for me. I see them on the internet, but am I going to actually do it? And so you can't unsee and go back to the unconscious of not knowing. And you also aren't ready to take action yet. And I call that the point of no return because I wanted to put a term on it because that place can fucking suck.
Absolutely.
It's so hard when you are too afraid to take action because it's so uncertain, it's so vulnerable, so scary, but also you're in pain because you can't unsee and go back to the unconscious of like not knowing.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of seekers, that's what I call all of you listening, people who are interested in personal development, people that know that they are here to find deeper meaning in their life, to their quest is to be the best person that they can be. Sometimes I'm like, could I have been born someone that just wants to live on the surface of my life? Like not be this? Because I say all this to give people grace if you're in that gap, because I think a lot of people listening probably are. So we need to take a quick ad break. And when we get back, can we talk about some things that you saw in my profile? And then I'm going to ask you like what other examples there are for other people.
Absolutely.
Okay. We'll be right back, everybody. I've taken many classes with Masterclass on different topics by some of my favorite instructors like Chris Voss, Diane von Furstenberg, and Adam Grant. There's some amazing personal growth classes there too, like Small Habits That Make a Big Impact on Your Life by James Clear, Where Does Courage Come From by Sarah Blakely, and Curb the Self-Affirmations by Daniel Pink. Lately, I was curious about Emily Morris's class. I follow her on Instagram, Sex with Emily. So I took her class, Sex and Communication, and I especially loved her section on asking for what you want, which can be tricky because it involves vulnerability and sex. These classes really make a difference. 88% of members feel that Masterclass has made a positive impact on their lives. For just $10 a month, an annual membership with Masterclass gets you unlimited access to every instructor. Plus, every new membership comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Don't wait another moment to start your learning journey with Masterclass. Right now, our listeners get an additional 15% off any annual membership at masterclass.com/Andrea. That's 15% off at masterclass.com/Andrea. masterclass.com/Andrea. Shopify's already taken the cash register online, helping millions sell billions around the world. But did you know that Shopify can do the same thing at your retail store? Give your point of sale system a serious upgrade with Shopify. With Shopify, you get a powerhouse selling partner that effortlessly unites your in-person and online sales into one source of truth. Track every sale across your business in one place and know exactly what's in stock. Connect with customers inline and online. Shopify helps you drive store traffic with plug-and-play tools built for marketing campaigns from TikTok to Instagram and beyond. Get hardware that fits your business. Take payments by smartphone, transform your tablet into a point of sale system, or use Shopify's POS Go mobile device for a battle-tested solution. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/noise, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/noise to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/noise. Today's podcast is sponsored by MIDI Health. If you're like me, a woman over 40 dealing with things like hot flashes, insomnia, brain fog, mood swings, vaginal dryness, or weight gain, you don't have to accept it as just another part of aging. These symptoms can be linked to hormonal changes during perimenopause and menopause. And the experts at MIDI Health understand what you're going through and know how to assist. MIDI clinicians specialize in menopause care, offering safe, effective, FDA-approved treatments. And MIDI care isn't covered by insurance, which is amazing. You don't have to push through this alone. Schedule a virtual visit to discuss your symptoms and health history in detail. You'll leave feeling heard and with a plan to start feeling so much better. You deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com, joinmidi.com. All right, we're back. I would like to give people an example of what might come up when you run their human design and gene key. So let me start that. Are those two separate sort of reports that you get from the birthday, birth time, and birthplace?
Yes.
Okay.
So, and I'm so glad you asked that. So let me just color in a little bit some background of human design and the gene keys and what it is, because you touched on it previously. So human design's been around a long time, right? There's lots out there on the internet. If you're to Google it, right? Human design's been around. And so gene keys was actually created by a man named Richard Rudd, who is a student of the founder of human designs, Ra Uru.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yep. And so what Richard said was human design is so powerful. It's very complicated. It can be until you really, walk through it step by step. So he created the gene keys, which is a more simplistic view, but very powerful view of your gifts. And so if just to give you an example, looking at a gene keys report, and I have yours up here, there are actually 64 gene keys. And in human design, they're called activations, but there are 64. But in the gene keys profile, and I'm looking at yours right now, what we're looking at are 13 of them. Okay. And so what Richard Rudd did is really give you a simplistic, but really powerful, I almost want to call it the foundational view of who we are. So we're going to get into just a couple of these, but overarching what you're looking at there is a snapshot of who we are, who we're meant to be, and what we're meant to do in the world.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's really the foundation of the gene keys. And here's an analogy that might help you and listeners who maybe have seen a human design body graph before, because at first glance, it's a lot to take in. The gene keys is always the great first step. It's the first step I took with you. It's the first step I take with all of my clients. And it's kind of like when you need an x-ray of your knee, for example, and you go and you get an ultrasound, right? The gene keys report is kind of like the ultrasound.
Okay.
But then if you then go get an MRI of that knee, it's a little deeper. It's a little more information. And that would be the equivalent of your human design body graph.
Gotcha. And you did all of that on my profile or just the gene keys?
I did run your human design body graph, which I'm happy to show you.
But the the 3-page PDF that you sent me is just the gene keys, right?
Just the gene keys.
Okay.
Yes.
That I would like to put a link in the show notes so people can kind of see, because this isn't overwhelming. The gene keys is just a 3-page PDF.
Yep.
It's like the second page is just 4 paragraphs. And the third page is like a pretty kind of almost like when you have like your full horoscope run and like it looks like stars in the sky with all these lines and stuff. And you're like, I don't know what that means. That's what the third page looks like. So I'm happy to put that in the show notes for people to take a glance at what it might look like when they have theirs run.
Yeah.
But that's just the gene keys.
That's just the gene keys. Yes.
Which this gives me a lot of information. And I think this is the only thing I looked at that you sent me a year ago. And there were some things on there that I saw and I was like, get out of here. Get out of my face, Tracie. Like, because they like I'm looking at the word surrender and I'm like, ew, you mean the word that I got tattooed on my body? Cause it's one of the hardest things for me to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And I had very similar reactions with some of my things too. And so, because that's the power of this. And so the reason we want to start with the gene keys and it's somewhat unique, I'll say. There's many people who study human design who don't incorporate the gene keys at all. There's power here in learning and I'm going to use some terminology, your activation sequence, which is your life's work, your evolution, your radiance, and your purpose. And then your public profile, your public profile, which for you, Andrea, is you are a 6-2. And if you can see your green circles, you see the 6 kind of on the upper and the right, and then you see the 2, you're a 6-2. So when you can learn, and this is for all the listeners, when you can identify your activation sequence, right, along with your public role, that is the foundation to you learning who you're meant to be and the work you're meant to do.
And I like that these are color coded. So I'm just going to kind of read the bold print. So I'm not going to read mine specifically, but so the life's work, what I am here to do. I think you mentioned that. That's one of the gene keys. The second of 4 is my evolution, what I'm here to learn. Third gene key is your radiance, what keeps me healthy.
Yeah.
And then the fourth one is my purpose, what deeply fulfills me.
Yes.
So it's interesting that my purpose and my life's work are sometimes not the same thing. Because
it never is.
Yeah, because sometimes your life's work is going to be different than your purpose. Okay, I'm gonna stop talking. So, because I'm looking at some words in the paragraphs, and it's just it's whoa. Yeah. And it's specific enough where it's not like sometimes with horoscope, it's like, well, that could be a lot of different people, but this is specific. And this would, like, if this got pulled for like my son, I would be like, this is not Colton. Like this is very specific.
That's very funny you say that about your son. So one of the amazing things, so let's use my ultrasound MRI example for a second.
Okay.
And this has been my journey kind of this past year, right? Since you and I first started talking about this last summer, I've gone really deep into studying human design. And just like maybe someone who learns how to read an MRI report, once you know how to read it, you don't just read yours, you can read other people's, right? That's what you do. One of the things, and I just did this recently because it really does start with you understanding your own human design and gene keys. But this summer, I ran my body graph chart for my kids.
Okay.
And it has been so unbelievably enlightening we know our children, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably more than anyone else.
I have a senior in college and I have a senior in high school. And of course, for those of you that have multiple children, right, our kids are very different. But what I was able to see in their body graph and their gene keys, really, it confirmed what I know about my daughters, right? Them being very different, but also gave me a roadmap as to how to help them, especially my younger daughter. She's a senior in high school this year. She, struggles with a couple of things and we have some big decisions to make. And when I saw her gene key sequence and her body graph, it gave me a visual about how I can help her. And for anybody who has teenagers, right, this year, like these years are really tough. And her and I have battled. We really have. And so what's happened this summer is like me learning some of where she's struggling, what her shadows are, what her gifts are, confirmation, and also, okay, I understand. This is how I can help her even more. So it's been really, really enlightening to see my children's body graph. So you said that about your son. If we were to run your son's, he would have a whole unique, different view because there's 64 gene keys, but there's hundreds of different combinations of how they work together. And we are all unique. And this is one of the other powerful things about why I realized that this is a tool that can really help people. Because back to my example about my world that I've come from, which is all about let's take an assessment and let's have you answer 100 questions about your tendencies. When we are doing things like that, and now if you've ever done Myers-Briggs or DISC or whatever, we are answering those questions from our mind,
right?
Full of our paradigms, our limiting beliefs, whether we realize it or not.
How we want to be perceived by other people.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's the variable that can change things.
Yes, 1000%. Whereas your gene keys and your body graph is unfiltered you. Let me say it that way, right? It's you in your purest form, and it highlights they're called shadows, but what's holding you back, your fears, and really then how you are meant to be experienced in the world when you learn what your strengths and gifts are.
So let's just give people an example. And again, this will be like high level of what could come out of, and I love this summary on the very first page of this gene key. That's what I'm looking at. Yeah. So it says, it's broken down into genius, love, and prosperity. And this is where they're colored because I like it. So green is genius. And so for me, it says my deepest purpose in life is to manifest the gift of enrichment, which doesn't surprise me at all, given the work that I do. But this part, To realize my purpose, I need to transform the shadow. So this is like the obstacle, the thing that I'm going to keep running into that's going to keep me from my gift of enrichment. To realize my purpose, I need to transform. And this is for me specifically, the shadow of distraction.
Mm-hmm.
I must have laughed out loud the first time I saw that. Here I am on my 4th ADHD medication. And yeah, I'm not going to say anything more about that. All right. So the love one. In relationships, my greatest challenge is to transform the shadow of obscurity, which I'm not really sure what that means. I'll have you say a little bit more about that, into the gift of idealism. And then the highest expression of my heart is empathy, which is interesting because that is something I had to learn how to do, which most people, and also interesting given the work that I do. I was literally trained. I felt drawn to do that. And then the last one, prosperity. I unlock my prosperity gift through my gift of, and this is the word that's different for everyone, of inquiry. I undermine my prosperity. This one is like, I'm almost like embarrassed to read this out loud because it's so true. I undermine my prosperity through the shadow of doubt, which circles back to like the story you were telling.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. Why were you embarrassed to say doubt?
Given the work that I do, like my own inner critic still tells me you should be farther along in terms of your mindset, in terms of doubting yourself. Like you've been doing this for 17 years. You have all these books. And also I think just given the last 4 years I have not even remotely talked about on the podcast, and I might never, how difficult the last 4 years have been for me, personally, professionally, and health-wise. I have seen more dark days in the last 4 years than I have in my entire life combined. So there's for sure some shame there of like, girl, you did this for a living. Like you should have been able to be resilient faster. So seeing the shadow of doubt as one of the things that my gene keys is telling me, that's how I undermine myself, almost feels like a little bit of like they're saying like, we told you so.
So let me say this. And I went to that one because I think this is the one that your listeners can really relate to, because I have it too. Like when I saw this.
Oh, that was yours too.
Oh yeah. Well, not in, but in your human design, which I'm looking at right now, the doubt that exists for all of us is up in our head, our inspiration center, right?
The mind chatter.
So absolutely. So and you have this activated, right? Because it's right here in your gene key.
Oh, okay. So in the gene key means that it's activated. Like that's where my genes will automatically go to. So is it kind of like somebody who has some kind of disorder, like high blood pressure? So like my high blood pressure is activated. So is that the same kind of how the gene keys work? And I have to work to have a better high blood pressure?
I would say it's more of an awareness and so I'm looking at your human design, and this is why, right? The gene keys is a great like foundational place. But then when you look at it and where you're 63, so your doubt, right? That's your gene key 63, and it's located in our headspace, and you have that activated. So it's a lesson. So I wouldn't necessarily say, comparing it to high blood pressure, it's a life lesson we are meant to learn on this earth.
Gotcha. I see the difference.
And also, Andrea, the good news is this is a life lesson you are meant to help others with.
Interesting. Oh, that's going to make me cry.
Oh my gosh. I have shed so many tears. I can't even tell you. Oh. And so here's the other thing I want to share about doubt, because it's so prevalent, and especially, when we are thinking about making a change in our life, whether it is our relationship or our job, our career, we want to, right? And doubt is that thing that sits there and it holds us back from moving forward and making decisions. And so you have doubt. I have doubt and confusion in my headspace. Doubt, confusion. And this is why Andrea, one of the reasons I sat in a conference room in 2016 telling you that I wanted to go out on my own and didn't do it for another 5 years. And then, really have like struggled a little bit because when that's going to take front and center in our brain, doubt and confusion. Oh, and I have a nice little dose of uncertainty too. However, these are the lessons for you and for me that we are meant to help other people with.
Okay.
The things that, kind of our struggle becomes our story. Because here's the thing, and I want you to remember this because I see it so prominently in your design. And I'm looking at your human design as well. Doubt and confusion leads to clarity and courage and conviction.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that. Like, just given my life experience.
Yes.
And doing personal growth work.
Yes.
I'm curious, could you give some more examples of, I just read these sentences out loud, which are unique to me. And you give an example of yours. Can you give some examples of what comes up? What are some other things that people might see in their own profile? So like the genius part, my deepest purpose in life is to manifest the gift of what? What are some other options that people might get?
So there are 64 different options.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it's a crapshoot.
Oh yeah. And this is
not just like 12 horoscope ones.
No. There are 64 different options if we're talking about, and you're using one example there, but there's over 300 different combinations of how I'll call them activations and your gene keys come together. Sometimes they're coming together as strengths, right? So I'll give another example. I'll give mine, right? Okay. So for you, your life's work is the 42-6. So the 42 is the gene key, 42.6. The 6 is your public role, which I do want to just very briefly speak on that because it's also very powerful. My life's work is the 24.1.
Okay.
And for me, that is it's often called the silent mystic or the gate of transformation. And so when I first saw it, so my 24.1, so your shadow is expectation, my shadow is addiction.
Interesting.
Your gift of 42 is detachment. My gift is intention.
Okay.
Your gift as a 42, your highest essence is celebration. Your when you're operating at your highest is celebration. Mine is silence. I had no idea what that meant when I first looked at it.
I could see that about you.
Right? Because what do you mean?
Especially in comparison to me and how I show up in the world.
Yeah, I'm an extrovert. I love being around people. What do you mean? Blah, blah, blah. It's taking, this deep work and study to realize the power of silence and what it looks like for me in my life.
So for me, when you say celebration, can you say what exactly does that mean? Like,
so I want to share something with you. And this is an example of the work, right, that we do. Sometimes, and nothing wrong with this if this works for you, but sometimes if you run across a human design expert and they say, oh, let me do a reading for you, right? And that's all fine and great. But what we need to do then is really study and contemplate, what does this mean for us, right? Because if I had just done a reading and someone said my highest gift is silence, I would have said, what? What do you mean?
That makes sense. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. So for you, your life's work being the 42 celebration, another way to think of this is you are known as the celebration doula. And what that can look like is that you finish things and celebrate accomplishments. Celebration is around closing loops, seeing things through from beginning to end. The energy to finish things and celebrate your accomplishments.
But that's hard for me.
So when you can move past what's making it hard for you, which is something we would talk about.
Okay.
That's what's available to you.
As my life's work.
Yes. Yes.
And maybe that's why it's so hard for me, because like deep down, I know it's my life's work and I'm afraid. I think part of why I am afraid of closing loops, but they drive me crazy when loops are open, crazy. Part of what scares me about finishing things is the fear that I have that it's not going to be good enough, that people are going to judge it, that no one's going to come to my celebration, and that everyone is going to come to my celebration.
Yes. So 2 things come to mind there. Number one, one of the very powerful activities I walk clients through when we get into your human design, there are 20 very specific fears that exist within all of us. And some of them are more prevalent for each of us. And I would show you what, that fear looks like. And I guarantee that example that you just shared would come up.
Would show up for me.
Absolutely. And it reminds me of, you shared this on your podcast at some other point where we had a conversation about the fear you had when, during your book launches.
It's exposure. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. And so
they might have a different word for it, but that's basically it. It's like, it's the juxtaposition and really how difficult it is to be stuck in this place of wanting to do so many really cool things and like be up on stages doing these really cool things and celebrating. And also I'm a high risk taker. So I'm going to keep trying and I'm going to try and I'm going to jump and jump and jump, even if I know the net's not there. And also terrified that people are going to be watching. I'd rather do it with like 1 or 2 people that I know are like my biggest fans. And even that's scary.
So I do want to share one other piece that's so incredibly powerful. And I'm going to use some language that some of your listeners may have heard before.
Okay. I need to pause because we need to take another ad break, but we're going to be right back. And then I want you to run with that because I want people to be excited about having their own profile read. So we'll be right back, everybody.
Curtindo podcast, né? Sabe o que você também vai curtir? Saber que o melhor flip de todos os tempos chegou. O novo Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 6, com Flex Cam, que tem zoom automático e faz selfies de 50 megapixels. E com bateria estendida para nunca te deixar na mão. Vá a uma loja ou saiba mais em samsung.com.br. Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 6. Galaxy AI chegou.
Quem é Besouro Suco?
Nunca diga esse nome, ouviu?
Besouro Suco.
Eu tô falando muito sério. Se disser o nome dele 3 vezes, coisas ruins vão acontecer.
Tipo o quê?
Besouro Suco.
Besouro Suco!
Besouro Suco!
O suco tá soltinho.
Em 5 de setembro,
Vambora com isso?
a espera
Partiu, novinha.
acabou.
Queremos agradecer a presença de todos nessa ocasião especial. Eu senti bem aqui.
Eca.
Garanta seu ingresso. Verifique a classificação indicativa.
This episode is sponsored by ByHeart. ByHeart features a patented protein blend that gets closest to breast milk. Their blend includes the most abundant protein found in breast milk, alpha-lac, as well as lactoferrin, the #1 protein found in colostrum, along with broken down, partially hydrolyzed proteins. ByHeart is an easy-to-digest formula. In addition to its patented protein blend, their formula includes prebiotics and an 80-20 whey-to-casein ratio, like in early breast milk, which is tailor-made for a newborn's digestive system. ByHeart is the only U.S.-made infant formula with ingredients from all over the world to use organic, grass-fed whole milk, not skim. ByHeart is made with certified clean ingredients, plus it has no soy, corn syrup, GMOs, or palm oil. ByHeart formula is clinically proven for easier digestion, less spit up, and softer poops versus a leading infant formula. Curious about ByHeart? Redeem your welcome offer at byheart.com/podcast with code Andrea for a limited time. Additional terms and conditions apply. Okay, going back to what you were just about to share. Please go on.
Yes. So I wanted to touch on, I had mentioned it earlier, your public role. And so they're made up of what's called lines, and there are 6 lines. And out of those 6 lines, there are 12 combinations of what our public roles are.
So what do you, when you say public role, does like, what would that look like for someone who doesn't have like a kind of like an actual public role? Like,
Oh, right. So, and I love that you asked that. So it's not as literal as you might think.
Someone
It's
being a
how
public figure. It's not
correct.
that. Okay.
Yes. No, no, no. And that's a great question. I'm glad you asked it. It's the way that we show up in the world and how we are meant to be experienced by other people.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay. Yes. So it's called your public role.
Like your
or
public persona, I would call it.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Yes. And in human design, and maybe this will make more sense, it's also referred to as your brand profile, how people are meant to experience you.
Okay.
So I wanted to share this with you. And there are 12 different combinations. And so this is something I would share with anyone who wants to have their Gene Keys report done. This is one of the things we talk about is what is your public role? So for you, Andrea, you are a 6'2".
Mhm.
You are the authentic guide. And
Shut up.
Yes. And so what I want you to do is I really want you to just listen to these words and for your listeners and your audience who know you, and there's some that have been around for quite a while, please listen to this description of Andrea's, the way she's meant to interact in the world and help other people. The authentic guide, the role model who is very discerning and truly authentic in terms of being a role model only in the areas that they are a natural in and passionate about. You are a new paradigm leader, naturally changing perspectives and thinking. You are the guide of guides, and you can be a role model for other role models and leaders.
No.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes. You are the authentic guide.
I
my
vaguely
friend.
remember seeing that, I think last summer, and being like, this is, I think when I saw that, I was like, I don't want to read anymore because I'm afraid of what I'm going to see in there. Because again, like that would never come up for like either of my children, probably.
Yeah. Well, that's you. And
So
when
what was yours?
Oh my gosh. So
because I want to see the difference.
yes. And that's so great that you asked that because I'm very different. I am a 1-3. So where you see a 6 on your profile, Andrea, if you're looking at your Gene Keys, I have a 1 there.
1. Okay.
And where you see your 2, I have a 3.
Okay.
And I am the experienced authority.
Ooh, I like that one too.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so what that means is that I am meant to be out in the world using my experience and my knowledge to help and guide others.
And here you are.
And here I am. And but also my 1-3, they fight against each other. And so this is where it was a huge awakening for me. One of the things that was holding me back is that, well, I don't want to try to do that because I need more knowledge and I need more certifications. And maybe that's the answer. And I was searching because that's what our 1 feels like. We always need to have more knowledge.
Okay. I don't feel that way. Like a little bit. Yeah. Like, oh, maybe I should go to grad school. But then I'm like, I'm fine. I have enough. And I don't read self-help books. People are surprised to hear that. Like, I'm good.
No, you don't need to. You are the role model. You are the role model. Whereas I tap into my expertise and my experience.
Okay.
Very different things. So actually, it's a great example. Coincidentally, the 6-2 and the 1-3 are a little bit different.
Yeah. Oh, that's so fascinating. Okay.
Yes. And the last thing I wanted to share, and this is some terminology that some of your audience may be familiar with, like if you go out into the internets and, look up human design, you, in looking at your report, you are a manifesting generator.
That I knew. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But I again, know very little about what that means.
Right. What does that even mean?
And wait, before you continue, isn't there 4 options? There's manifester, there's generator, there's manifesting generator. And isn't there another one?
There's actually 5.
Okay.
So I'm going to use traditional human design terminology right now.
Okay.
Manifesting generator, projector, manifester, and reflector.
Okay.
And so the way that I like to explain this to my clients is using some terminology in the human design world. It's called human design for business. And I'll just leave it there for now. but I like it because it gives you a more practical explanation. So for you, Andrea, being a manifesting generator, right? And it's like, okay, well, what does that mean? You are an express builder. And I want you to listen to these words too. And again, those of us, right, listening that know Andrea the way we do, Andrea is an express builder. You are designed to do work you love in a quick and efficient way.
Hurry up.
Yeah.
Efficient, not always. Fast, yes, to my detriment.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay. And it's because of the combination of manifesting and generator that makes the quick interesting. God, I'm
correct. As opposed to a generator, which I refer to as a classic builder, which when you're a classic builder, you're designed to do work you love in a step-by-step process.
Okay. More methodical.
More methodical.
That makes me crazy. I wish I had more of that, but that annoys. This is where team building can come in handy, like knowing how you work with other people and like knowing how people work best and things like that. It's so fascinating. Okay, well, we're getting close to time here. And so is there, before I tell people or you tell people where to go, where they can find out more about how to work with this and work with you, is there anything else that you want to say about this before we close up?
I know we've covered a lot.
We have.
We have. And really just scratching the surface. If anyone's wondering or having this feeling that I think there's something else I meant to do, I'm not sure what it is, but I feel as though like it's a feeling, right? Yeah. Whether it's making a change in any capacity in our lives, but you're just not sure. Taking a look at your gene keys and your human design could be the roadmap that you're looking for, as far as, thinking about, well, what do I want for these next X amount of years that we have on this earth? There's so much, and we could probably keep talking and going about some of the things that are uncovered in looking at your body graph. But it really is so powerful.
I want to, and I know we don't have that much time, but could you, because one of the first things because I haven't seen you on video it's been a couple of years at least. And I noticed that you look different than the last time I saw you. So can you tell people just briefly how incorporating this work, because my jaw fell on the ground, like how this has affected your physical health?
And this goes back to the shadow I shared a moment ago about my life's work being addiction. I could talk about it in a literal sense, but I think I was addicted to, chasing the next big thing or big diet or big, this is going to help me, lose 20 pounds in 30 days or whatever. And I'm sure many of your listeners, for those of you, like I struggled with my weight my entire life. So when I saw that there, I thought, oh my gosh, but it's really more than just struggling with food. It's struggling with the thought process around, oh my God, what diet am I going to go on? And well, I need to be this size, and the mind chatter. That's where my addiction came in.
Yeah.
And so in doing this work and some of the mindset work that I walk my clients through is what changed me. And this started, I'd say 2 years ago. So it wasn't about, I started doing keto and because I know, and I know so many of you can relate to this. I know what to do. It's out there on Instagram everywhere, right? Right. But it was about, who do I need to show up as in order to be that healthy version of myself? That is the work I needed to do.
But you didn't know that. It's not like you decided to dive into human design because you're like, this is the thing that's going to make me finally lose the weight.
Oh my gosh, no. Right?
Yeah, no. I just wanted to make that clear for the listener.
No. It really has been this evolution over this past couple of years. And so it started with me being on this quest to figure out, well, who do I need to be? What frequency do I need to be operating at to be that next version, healthy version of me? And then in studying human design, that's where I got to go deep in, oh my gosh, this is who I'm meant to be.
Yeah.
And so the decisions I've had to make about my health and fitness routine, I won't say easier, but it became clearer to me. Okay. And I was able to step into that. And this has not been overnight. I haven't seen you for a while. I'd say this has been about an 18 to 24 month process. And I'm down about 40 pounds.
Yeah, which is a lot.
And, at a time in my life where I'm in my 50s, I'm in perimenopause, I have all this stuff going on. There's no way, if you would have told me a few years ago that this is the time that I would have been able to get in the right mindset and be that healthy version of me, even before I started losing the weight, I would have said, you're absolutely crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you look healthy. Like if I was worried about you and I felt like, I'm like, God, she looks really thin, I would not have asked you that question. I would have been like, you're not coming on my podcast and telling people that this, was the thing that, do you know what I mean? Like I try to be very cognizant of that. And I also know how much this has been a struggle for you. I mean, there have been times where it's been painful for me to see you struggle and kind of the lengths that you were going to. And as a facilitator, I thought to myself, like, I knew that the weight itself wasn't the answer that you were looking for.
Right.
And I know that we had conversations about that. And I, as a facilitator and a coach, I can only take you so far. And I just want to say, like, I'm so glad. It sounds like, if I may, it sounds like you found the thing that allowed you to give yourself permission to show up in the world as you were meant to, as well as look specifically at the places that will give you the most accelerated, if I can use that word, or clear path to growth. Is that fair?
Oh, 1000%.
Okay.
And, it is no coincidence, right? Because when we're struggling in certain areas of our life, when I was really struggling with, oh my gosh, I want to go out on my own and I don't know if I can. And I have doubt and confusion. What am I doing? I'm overeating and overdrinking.
Yeah.
Right. And then, oh, my business isn't working and this isn't working and my husband's mad at me. And so what am I doing? I'm overeating and overdrinking. And so when you can get, your mindset aligned, and when things start to come together, things start to come together.
Yeah. Okay. And I want to say this too, before we tell people where they can go to learn more, is that when I have guests on my show, when they're talking about things like this, most of the time, I don't know them. I know them from the internet. I have read their bio. I may have read parts of their book. And so I'm just kind of trusting, that people are going to see what's best for them if they choose to go work with this person or buy their book. I want to say this too. With you, I've known you for 8 or 9 years now, personally and professionally. And I trust you implicitly with, I mean, I would sign on as a client with you. And I can only say this for very, very few guests. And I'm saying this about you. So people listening, if you want to, and I don't get any kind of kickback, this isn't like a commission or affiliate or sponsor. If people want, like, you have something for people to be able to, is it get on a call with you, or what is it that you have?
Yeah. And thank you for that. That means the world to me. It really does. So thank you for that. Yeah. So I have something super exciting. So I am launching my signature program, and I was about to say coming out later this fall. But
yeah. Well, and like, to be fair, like, this was kind of just for the sake of transparency, I had a spot open for next week, and I called Tracie and I'm like, can you come on my podcast and talk about Gene Keys? Because I don't have anybody slotted for next week. So you weren't even really ready. Like,
I was more ready than I thought I was.
Okay, good.
Let's put it that way. And we've been talking about this for a little while, right?
Okay.
Like we had kind of like, oh, let's have you on the podcast. As the rollout to my program, which is launching soon. I can't even say next fall because Labor Day is like next week. I have a really exciting opportunity. I am opening up my calendar a little bit more than I normally do. Calendar freedom, I guess, is something that I really value in being an entrepreneur. But I'm so excited because ultimately, the person that I want to help is me. That person who has been struggling, right? In whatever facet. That's who I am excited to help. And so I'm opening up my calendar and offering, I'd love to run Gene Keys reports for anyone who's interested. And what that would entail is, let's hop on the call. We're gonna hop on a call for 30 minutes. You will receive the same report that Andrea did. We'll walk through that. And in anticipation of my program coming out, which is called the She Experience.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And I chose the word experience because that's what this is. This is not, hey, here's your report and good luck to you.
Yeah.
This is a journey into studying you. And so in anticipation of the She Experience launching, I also, when we do a 30-minute call, have what I'm going to call the She Audit. And so it's just a quick exercise that I want to walk people through to really assess, where are you now? Where do you want to be in certain areas of life, and what's standing in the way? And we can look at your Gene Keys report and actually identify a couple of things that are standing in the way, just like we did with you, Andrea.
Okay. So to be clear, that they can have their profile run and get on the 30-minute call with you, and that's free.
Yep. All complimentary.
And then you'll tell them about the program and they can decide if it's right for them.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And where do they go for that? We'll put the link in the show notes, but where do the people go?
They can go to thesheexperience.com/free call.
Okay. Free call, all one word?
Yep. All one word. And from there, there'll be instructions. I will run your Gene Keys report. So there'll be instructions there to put in the 4 pieces of information that I would need to run their report. And then you pick a time on my calendar. Let's chat for 30 minutes. And I'd be so excited to show people just the true gifts in their activation sequence and their public profile, just like you and I did here today.
Do you work with people one-on-one? I'm asking for me.
Yeah, I do. So, yeah. So, I have this unique opportunity right now. I am launching a program, but I am also taking on a handful of one-on-one clients as well. And, it's a really unique and really exciting way to take this deep dive into your human design body graph. So yeah.
Okay. If somebody is interested in working with you one-on-one, probably the best way is to do the profile run. And then you can talk about that when you talk.
Absolutely.
To them.
This is the first step. This is absolutely the first step. Because we're going to take a look at your Gene Keys profile. We'll do that quick audit of kind of where you want to go. And then we'll talk from there.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. And we'll have all those links in the show notes. Thank you so much. This has been so enlightening for me. And, and also thank you for I was at a pinch having a guest to come on quickly.
Yeah. Oh, it's been so great. Yeah. Thank you so much, Andrea.
It's been so great to there's very few things better than, as a coach or facilitator, like watching your clients over the years grow and change and evolve into the person that they were meant to be. And, no pun intended with what this work is. So thank you everyone for listening. And I know we went a little bit longer than normal, but I felt like it was all important. And I'm so grateful for your time. And remember, it's our life's journey to make ourselves better humans and our life's responsibility to make the world a better place. Bye for now. Hey listeners, if you work for a company that does professional development, did you know that I offer leadership training, more specifically empathy and assertiveness and how it makes stronger teams? You can see more on my speaking page at andreaowen.com/speaking, where there's also a contact button there so you can fill out that form and let's chat.
Are you a parent in need of a laugh and a little escape? Look no further. Parenting is a Joke is the podcast you've been waiting for. Hey, I'm Ophira Eisenberg. I'm a stand-up comic and parent. And each week I chat with one of my top comedian pals who, just like you, are juggling careers, busy lives and schedules, and raising a family. You can expect candid stories, hilarious mishaps that happen on stage and at home, and just a lot of laughs. There's no expert advice here. Well, actually, sometimes a good idea does sneak its way in, but mostly just pure, relatable fun to remind you that we're all in this parenting adventure together. New episodes of Parenting is a Joke drop every Tuesday, so tune in, get ready to laugh, unwind, and maybe even feel a little bit better about your own parenting. Because sometimes that's exactly what your therapist, pediatrician, and bartender ordered. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast platform.